Welcome back to Car Compulsion. The sun's out. That can only mean one thing. It's time to drive the Supra. That's right, one and all. It's driving review day. The Supra going under the microscope. I'm going to tell you all about how it drives, tell you a little bit about the car, functionality, how it makes me feel, what it's like on the road, a back road, the presence, and what it's like as a daily driver, because that is exactly what I use it for. So it's going to be really interesting to share my insights with you. This car has really delivered over the last sort of week and a half, and I am super excited to get into this one. So where do we begin? The Toyota Supra. Well, I guess a good place to start is just to talk to you a little bit about something that you might hear when we're out on this driving review. Now, I have had my exhaust or back box modded by PCW Exhaust Mods. There is going to be a video coming probably within the next week once I've edited it up that will cover that day and all of the things that went on with the exhaust. But if you hear it being particularly loud and particularly noisy and crackly, then that is the reason why it isn't 100% stock at the moment. And I just wanted to mention that. So the Toyota Supra has been a name that has resonated amongst car enthusiasts for countless amounts of years. Whether you were into the tuning scene or whether you followed even mainstream media like Fast and Furious and all the films where these crazy Supras featured, Toyota had a huge amount of presence in that market with this particular car. Now, the car's gone through a drastic transformation, and I'm going to cover that straight off the bat. You know, it is not like the Supras of old, and that is for one particular main reason, is that BMW and Toyota actually merged and had a love child, if you would, and that love child is the 2020 Supra. Now, there's one thing you may or may not know, and that is that sports cars, or two-seater sports cars, are not a profitable investment for any car manufacturer. That is just a fact. They normally operate at a loss, and actually, you know, they are not a hugely desirable thing for car manufacturers to get involved in the world of saloons and, you know, SUVs and everything else on the market at this moment in time. So the Supra, being born from that collaboration with BMW and Toyota, is one of necessity more than anything else. And we're going to start by saying, look, this car is very BMW, okay? It's probably more BMW in certain ways than Toyota. But what I want to get to the bottom of in today's review is it a good sports car? Does that really matter? And is this just a really brilliant two-seater sports car? So we're going to focus on all of those positives and not dwell on what the car could have been, what the car should have been, or what the general community thought it should have been. So I'm going to take this opportunity while we are cruising towards the back roads to tell you a little bit about the car, and we can talk a little bit around that BMW influence. So let's talk around headline figures. This car operates under a 3-litre straight six engine. Now, it's completely 100% directly out of BMW. It's a BMW engine. It's the B58. Headline figures in the car are around 335 brake horsepower, and when I say around, I'll cover that in a minute, and 500 Newton meters of torque. The reason I say around 335 horsepower is because to me, this car feels immensely more powerful than those book figures dictate. And I think Toyota might have been telling a few porkies and maybe have, let's just say, put a figure down on paper that maybe isn't actually true of real world driving. Now, having owned the M2 competition, which is well in excess of 400 brake horsepower, honestly, and this is really honestly, this car does not feel hugely slower than my M2 comp. Yes, I'm sitting lower to the ground. Yes, you know, that's going to add a different type of feel, but I'd be very surprised, and I think this has been dyno proven as well, if this little beauty is not running somewhere between like 360 and 370 brake horsepower stock. So thank you very much, Toyota. That 3 litre straight 6 is actually matched to the ZF 8-speed automatic gearbox, so no dual clutches here, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. This gearbox and transmission combo is actually very good. We'll see later in the video when I switch over to manual and hit a few back roads that the car itself is actually very responsive, and it does a very, very good job of actually managing that power through that box and delivering on a really sporty feel. It can also be quite frugal when it wants to be as well. That 8-speed in the normal mode actually returns pretty decent MPG, so I can focus on the nitty-gritty of what really this car is all about. The engine is BMW, the interior very BMW, gear center area very BMW, iDrive system very BMW, even down to the memory on the seats, all BMW. But to me, that's a real plus point, because BMW's interior is much more premium than you would normally find in a Toyota, and I actually think that that's a real bonus. I see it as a huge plus point that there's lots of BMW influence in here. Like I mentioned in my earlier video, the steering wheel a little bit lackluster, and that is one thing that I don't particularly like, but overall the interior, the functionality, the way that everything is put together is very, very good, and I think we can thank our German friends for that one. The Supra comes really, really well equipped. Mine is the Pro variant, which over here in the UK is about £2,000 difference, give or take. You get a JBL 12-speaker sound system. You also get a wireless charging pad, but the car comes with a heads-up display. It's got electric memory seats, a lovely 8.8-inch touchscreen, digital dash, everything you could kind of want. It's got dual zone climate control, obviously, with that air conditioning function. Steering wheel buttons, like I said, the whole steering wheel is probably a bit of a letdown in general on the car. The buttons do look a little bit cheap, but it's also got things like automatic cruise control with a stop start and stuff like that, which is also very nice. But the safety benefits of the car are pretty insane, I have to say. It's got front and rear parking sensors, it's got a reversing camera, it's actually got road sign assist that you can see as well, so it picks up the speed. It's got a lane departure system that I have to say is particularly aggressive, and it will yank you over. I did actually have to turn that off myself. I wasn't really a huge fan. It's also got blind spot monitoring in the mirrors. It's got pre-collision assist, headlight leveling, and there's a few other things in that list as well that make it a really safety conscious car, which in today's day and age is also really appealing. The car has 2 driving modes. Yes, just 2. Pretty refreshing, to be honest, in a world where there are a million different customizations. There is your normal everyday pottering around, driving to the shops, maybe doing the commute mode, which keeps the gears changing up very quickly. It's aiming more for economy because this car doesn't have an eco mode, not that you'd potentially want one in a car like this. And then it has a sports mode setting, and in that sports mode setting you can leave it to run its own configuration, or you can change the damping, the steering, the engine, the transmission, and there is that element of customization in there that still makes it a little bit personal, which is really, really nice. One thing with the Supra that was a hugely pleasant surprise is how good the variable or active dampers are in the car between the 2 different modes. But in general, in the comfort mode, the car is really, really composed. It's not crashy, it's not bumpy. It's one of the best cars I've ever had for active damping, and that is the honest truth. The Civic Type R did a brilliant job of it. This doesn't, probably, if not on par, maybe an even better job. It's so refined when you want it to be, yet when you hit the sports mode, everything stiffens up. You can still feel that element of sort of the car being refined. It still won't smash over potholes and bumps, but it gives you enough confidence then to really start pushing on the corners. So how quick is it? The honest answer, it's bloody quick. The torque is unbelievable. That 500 Newton meters is delivered between around 1600 and 4,500 revs, and you really, really feel it. By God, do you feel it? The car absolutely thrusts you forward. The delivery of power from the B58 is nothing short of sensational. It feels incredibly quick. One of the quickest cars that I've ever owned, despite it having that 335 brake horsepower on paper. It just, the sensation that you get in it, the theatre, the drama, the way that the torque delivery is reasonably linear but also quite aggressive. You know, it runs out of puff a little bit when you put it down. When it heads up to the higher RPMs, it runs a 100,000, but you've had the fun out of it by then. You've had everything you need. The B58 is an absolute masterpiece. This car is fast. Handling, one word, unbelievable. The car is one of the best I've ever driven for carving up a B road and making you feel like a miniature racing driver. It is really, really something special. It's got that McPherson strut up the front, the back is a multi-link, and then we obviously have the active diff or the differential managing that power, and very little do you feel the rear wheels slip. Yes, if it's wet, there's going to be that element of that back end getting a little twitchy, but this car, the way that it sits on the road, the way that the composed body moves around the corners, the way that the steering complements it, is really, really something to write home about. I cannot explain to you how little body roll there is in the car, how well the diff sucks you into the corner and pulls you out of the corner, and honestly, I've never had as much fun in any car on a back road than I do in this. Steering feel is really, really good in this car. I'm really pleased to say that it didn't inherit that kind of dead weight steering that you find in BMWs and I had in my Mini. It's very pointy, very direct, but it isn't too much of a labour. Like if you are just cruising around or you need to park it, even with these giant wheels and very wide tyres, it's still very, very easy. That electronically controlled steering does make living with it easy on the day-to-day, but when you take it out onto a back road, it really, really delivers. The steering knows exactly where you want the car to go. It's not the most reactive I've ever had, I must say, and you don't get a huge amount of feel through the steering wheel, but it's still a pleasure, it's still a real joy. I really, really like it. One of my favourites on any car so far. The book figure 0 to 60 time is 4.3 seconds, and boy, I can believe that it will put down a time that quick. Because I don't have a drag gear or any specialist timing gear, I haven't really tried it out. The top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour, as is the way of the world with these UK cars. Nothing that wouldn't be able to be de-restricted should you want it. If you went down that route of tuning, I'm sure you could have that removed. So how's the car to live with as a daily driver? Now, as a father of two, I pick my son up from school in this a couple of times a week, no problems whatsoever. There is actually quite a large boot back there, 290 litre boot. You can actually get quite a bit of stuff in there. And from that perspective, it's definitely usable. From comfort perspective, 100% livable, really easy to get along with on the day-to-day. It's comfortable. I feel nice in it. It's premium. It's a great place to be. The cabin is just a very, very well-rounded, well-built thing. The only thing I will say is that there's very little space in here, even when it comes to like door card pockets. It's barely got any space down there. When you pull that out, there's a couple of cup holders here in the middle, which are good. But you know, you're not carrying very much around up front here. But would you ever need to? Would you ever want to? I mean, I chuck my bag down there, I can have a drink in here, you know, but those pockets are barely even pockets. The side pockets are honestly so small, you barely even get a bottle of water in there. So is there anything that I don't like about it? Yeah, there is. There's a few things, but they're minimal. One thing that is a very common problem is wind buffeting when you've got the window down and you're driving. Is absolutely out of this world bad. Honestly, it is awful. It makes you feel like your head's being put inside a washing machine. It is really, really bad. That can be easily eradicated though, because I know you can actually buy some little things that stick on there that will actually interrupt that flow of air so you can drive with the windows down. So that's one annoying thing. The other thing I don't like is some of those safety features. Like I mentioned, that lane departure assist is ridiculously aggressive, and if you ever just want to kind of merge off and you haven't hit the indicator or whatever, it literally tears the steering wheel out of your hand. So you know, that is a little frustrating, I have to say. And the other thing that I don't like a huge amount is, as I've mentioned a couple of times, the steering wheel. I think the buttons and everything on it look a little cheap, and I think that it could be a nicer looking thing. I mean, this bit here in the middle here is completely blank, and it doesn't make much sense to me why you couldn't have put, I don't know, a Supra badge or something there. Half a tank of petrol, gone. Sunlight, gone. And the driving review is complete. Really enjoyed putting this one together. This car is something special. I am loving it, and I can't wait to bring you guys more content on the Supra. There's some more modifications in the pipeline. I have to say, I'm getting a little bit carried away with thought processes already. The PCW exhaust modification video is going to be dropping in about a week, and there are some other cars coming onto the channel, including a supercar that I think you guys are really going to like. So do hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the content, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.